I got poisoned by my old job, called in my dad, outed them for illegal practices, caused my two brothers that worked with me to quit with me, and plunged their store down their ranking lists. Now I warn everyone not to buy anything from there. This is going to be a long one, so settle down, friends, as I tell you the horrors of this damned store. So I, 21M, used to work at a particular chain of southern grocery stores that sounds like the word Pringles. I worked at their stores from age 18 to 21 and only quit last year. I'm turning 22 in July. So yes, these stores were the only places I ever worked. I don't want to get into all the nasty details, or we would be here for years, but this corporation is so messed up and corrupt they did everything from shuffling around sexual offenders from store to firing people based off of race and religion. I myself got harassed a ton by another worker and several recurring customers, and nothing was ever done about it. But that's a different story. Now on to why I quit from the first store. At this time, I was freshly 19. I was the main cook at the Asian food station at the deli, on top of manning several other stations. I was kneeling down to get the sauces from a low fridge when I breathed in, and I felt something hit me in the back of the brain. I was thrown off for a second, but figured I was fine. They had an outside contractor in our area doing some work, so I just assumed I caught a whiff of a cleaner he was working with. I picked up the wok of orange chicken I had been making and brought it up to the serving station and put it up when one of the servers, a very sweet elderly woman, asked if I was okay, looking very concerned. I still felt fine at the moment, so I said yes. But that was it. For the moment. I immediately felt the worst brain haze I had ever felt. My feet went out from under me and my vision went completely blurry. I stumbled backwards and was able to catch myself on the counter behind me. Later on, the server told me she asked if I was okay because I hadn't only lost all of my color, I had gone gray. It felt like all my balance was gone. I worked with two of my brothers at the same location, and one of them came running to help me stand. I have vague memories of my brother helping me walk to the indoor cafe, but my head was literally lulling in circles. I couldn't keep my head upright. I think I almost fell on one of the managers from the front of the store. My brother made me sit down at a table and got me a cup of water. That's when I realized I was crying. My heart was pounding so hard my entire front of my uniform was moving with it. Whatever my body was reacting to was so bad, it was overwhelming it. I felt like I couldn't move. I was just sunk into the chair crying. I tried to pick up the cup and my brother had to come back to help me take a drink. At this point, I was panicking. A fact about the kitchen that I, as the head chef, was painfully aware of. We had a gas-run pizza oven, a really old gas-run oven. A gas-run oven that you had to kick to get all four burners kick on. I'll tell you now, it wasn't a gas leak. But that's what my brain immediately went to, especially since they refused to do maintenance on that oven, or the gas-run open flame walks one machine away from said oven. This whole time I felt like I wanted to throw up, but at the same time, I couldn't. The supervisor told my brother he had to stop checking on me and that he would get in trouble if he kept checking. The supervisor and other members of morning shift. I was a night shifter. My other night shifters know how it is. Well, they were treating me like I was exaggerating. One of them came over one of them in particular that I hated because she looked down on everyone and started baby talking about how some people are just weaker than others. This whole time I was panicking and telling her I wasn't exaggerating, and everyone else needed to leave the deli until we figured out what it was. And if it was affecting me so badly it had been an hour and my body was still panicking, it was bad. She brushed me aside and left again. That's when I realized they weren't going to investigate what happened to me at all. And they were going to keep everyone, including my two brothers, working in the same area I just got affected in. That's when our absolute hero shows up, the nearby McDonald's manager. A sick dude around the same age as me that regularly got food at the deli. I had served him a few times. He had been sitting in the cafe on his lunch break from his job when he saw me. He immediately came over and asked what was wrong, as we were on bro terms. I gave him a breakdown on what was going on, and he went over to check it out. He came back and said he didn't smell a gas leak, but I was definitely displaying concerning signs. So without linking himself to me, he went up to the front of the store and basically demanded they do something about it. However, the front management realized it must have been me, so their solution. Not to find out what did this to me. To take me from the cafe, drag me up to the management office, and sit me in a swivel chair so they could keep an eye on me. That's right. They sat a dude that couldn't balance on his own in a swivel chair next to a desk corner. They proceeded to completely ignore me and not let my brothers come into the office to talk to me, and I was still panicking about the fact the other workers could breathe in whatever I had. I finally was able to coordinate enough to pull my phone out of my apron pocket and text my dad. I texted him a very short list of PowerPoints of what happened, and he asked a few questions about why my management was acting like they were, which all I could say was, I don't know. Now, this wasn't my proudest moment. A 19-year-old guy who had been crying for over an hour and couldn't stop, texting his dad, I don't know what's happening, Dad, but I'm scared and I need you. He told me he was on his way and to clock out. I told the managers my dad was coming and I needed to clock out. At this point, they were acting annoyed with me, especially the store owner. I could talk for days about how terrible the store managers were, so they were glad I was leaving. They offered to help me walk to the time clock. I should have taken their offer, but I was so angry and disappointed, I refused and just held onto the front desk and shelving as I got to the clock-out room. I clocked out and stumbled my way back to the area I worked at to get my stuff. I had to bring my own supplies to work because they never gave us new equipment, so I had a whole backpack I needed to grab. My brothers immediately tried to run over to me when they saw me, but the manager blocked them and told them to keep working. Before I could get my manager, a woman that I had been working under since I was 18 and frankly, scared me, blocked me from going into the back room to get my bag and started demanding answers from me. Once again, this is not a proud moment. I have a medical condition that made me stop growing at 14, so I am pretty easily intimidated. She was taller and stronger than me, and I still felt completely vulnerable. All of my senses were still shot and my body was still in panic mode. I tried to answer her questions, but I was just mumbling and stumbling over my own words. That's when I saw him. My dad. My dad is a 5'6" man who worked as a jack-of-all-tradesman for most of my childhood. I'm talking plumber, electrician, groundskeeper, roofer, builder. At this time, he was working as a contractor, so he quite literally was building and modifying higher-class houses in the mountains. He came storming in his contracting gear with a bandana wrapped around his head. That's when I knew I was going to be okay. My brothers talked about it later, but if anyone knew anything about my dad, if he had that bandana on, he was going after someone, and they were royally screwed. He walked up and immediately crossed his arms, demanding to know what happened to his kid. Once again, not a proud moment, but I moved to hide behind him. My manager was caught off guard for a moment but recovered and started telling my dad I had just overreacted to a cleaner the contractor was using. At that time, I had figured it must have been something the contractor was using, but I didn't know for sure, so the fact they knew what had done this to me and didn't feel the need to tell me made me mad. But it pissed my dad off. He demanded to talk to the contractor. If you've ever heard a 49-year-old man get mad, you can imagine the tension in his voice. He didn't yell. He never yells. But when he gets serious, the tension in his voice is genuinely terrifying. The contractor they hired came over. That's when my dad's expertise clicked in. My dad, the contractor. In other words, the guy that knew all the local laws around contracted labor. He asked all the right questions. He demanded to see what the contractor had been spraying around the kitchen that day. When they handed him the can, he tore the contractor a new one. So the kitchen I work in is blocked from the rest of the deli area by a counter. A counter has about an inch of space under it for cleaning purposes. So when I leaned down, this spray had shot under the counter and directly into my face. And what was that spray? An industrial-grade degreaser. It was so strong it was meant to be used in empty factories by someone in a full respirator mask. It wasn't supposed to be sprayed around people, and especially not right in someone's face. My dad immediately pointed this out and demanded to see the contractor's safety sheet on the chemical, something that all contractors in our area are required to carry on every chemical they use to show they know how to safely use it. The contractor said he had it in his van. He did not. This man was using one of the strongest factory-grade degreasers on the market, and he didn't know how to safely use it. He was wearing a mask while using it, but not a respirator. It was just a plain white dust cover. My dad lost his mind on them and sent me past my manager to get my bag while he tore them apart. Oh, and the illegal part. The company wasn't supposed to hire outside contractors for this exact reason. But my manager did so that the work wouldn't be filed, so it would seem like our store didn't take any company resources for repair jobs. Anyway, my dad took me home and my siblings came back too. My dad went into his PC and looked at the full information page on the degreaser. I was in the second stage of serious poisoning. It wouldn't kill me, thankfully, but it wasn't fun. At this point, I had a little bit of my balance back, but I was still panicking and confused. I was able to draft up a text ripping them a new one and quitting. I had a pounding headache and I ended up throwing up 3 times before I fell asleep that night. I woke up the next day unemployed, but a lot happier. I had a headache for several days. I ended up working for the company again for around a year in the future, but that's a different story. Now, every time I get the chance, I out all the garbage I can on this dumpster fire of a trash company. And let me tell you just a few bullet points of dirt I have on them, just for a little more revenge. They wanted me to serve frozen soup that expired in 2018 and 2021. They marked rotisserie chicken that weren't organic as organic and sold them at the marked up price. They wanted us to cook chicken that went green. They reused expired meat from the meat counter in the ready-serve food. They called people slurs outright. They used outside contractors with no safety standards. The managers shuffle around offenders from store to store and hire offenders that the employees ask them to ban from the store. They purposely marked up prices during times of need, hurricanes, droughts, etc. They have entire teams whose only job is to take down posts about them online because they're that terrible. They called the police on a homeless man trying to stay in the warm during a below-freezing day. He wasn't bothering a soul. They didn't update the equipment, leading to several injuries. 2 of my coworkers lost large parts of their fingers. They delayed training until the last moments, leading to my training being 167 days overdue when I did it. They didn't fire an employee that slashed 2 other employees' tires and was known as a stalker. She followed someone all the way to their house. They had a food safety grade, A sign-up from 2019. Their current grade was barely above C, technically a B. And so many freaking more. But this is part of my revenge. If you're in the South and see one of these damn stores, just don't. Go into Publix. They're better. They treat their employees better. And honestly, I have never met an ex-employee from Pringles that doesn't want the entire corporation to fail and be gone. Anyways, that's the story of what happened, and my never-ending revenge. I will never stop outing them for the trash corporation they are, and neither will my family. I sincerely hope I live to see that company gone. Revenge forever. Sincerely, a man that hates that corporation with his entire being. TLDR, a store I and 2 of my brothers worked for brought in an outside contractor, which was illegal, poisoned me with industrial-grade degreaser that's not supposed to be used around humans, and dealt with it terribly. I called my contractor dad in, who tore them a new one, and all of us ended up quitting. Now I warn everyone about them and their other gross practices. Edit. Hey everyone. Think it's important you guys know I got a job, and they are aware of my medical issues or disabilities and are wanting to accommodate my needs. Thank you to everyone for the kind words and support, and here's to a hopefully much better work future.